I've played a lot of games on the Sega Genesis, some that I've loved and some that I've absolutely hated. As of 2023, I've beaten 35 out of the 713 games in the Genesis library, and today, I'm going to talk about some games that you should avoid unless you want to know what it's like to shit out razor blades. Please note, these games aren't in any particular order. They're just simply 10 games that made me want to shove my hand inside of a blender on the highest speed. Let's begin. Clue has a rich history as a board game, going all the way back to 1949 by Anthony E. Pratt. True story. He was just holed up in his house during World War II and said to himself, "I know the world is eating itself alive right now, and I can't be asked to do anything about it because I'm creating a board game called Cluedo. But I know that the Americans don't speak the Queen's English, so I'm gonna drop the do and leave the clue. Bitches love Clue." And it's stuck. Clue is a fun game. I play it all the time with my kids, and whenever I was a kid, I shook in horror at the 1998 PC release because of the really graphic cutscenes. But the first Clue game I ever played on my stream was the Genesis version, and let me tell you, that game is a problem. The biggest issue I had is that I felt that the rules of Clue were being broken by the AI, that they knew almost instantly what the solution was, i.e. the room, the murderer, and the weapon. So I cut it down in difficulty, and I feel the AI purposefully suggests cards that it has to throw you off, which is totally a valid strategy, but it's really fucking scuzzy. I don't like this. Play the board game. Sony ImageSoft is the harbinger of publishing bad games when it comes to making them based on licensed films and literature. They did Frankenstein, No Escape, Last Action Hero, and of course, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dracula was developed by Psygnosis, which historically has some ups and downs. Well, for me, the Genesis version of Dracula is one of the most janky games I've ever had the misfortune of playing. Here's some of the issues. Number one, if you don't play expert, you don't get to try the whole game. So imagine suffering through the stages and boss fights just to end up getting a try harder screen. Number two, the game's hitboxes are abhorrent. Number three, you spend like 80% of the stage wondering where to go. It's just a bad game, and unfortunately all versions of this game are equally as poo-poo. You know what else is? Frankenstein. Frankenstein was made by the same company, Sony ImageSoft, well, specifically Bits Studio, and it is equally as jank as Dracula. If you put Frankenstein and Dracula on a table in front of me and told me to choose one to play for the rest of my life or get shot in the face, I would take a 50 cal point blank to the head. Frankenstein is dull, boring, and exceptionally cryptic. While it does follow very, very small portions of the plot in the film, it takes tons of literary licenses, and even with that creative padding, it just makes a shitty game last much longer than it should. Entertainment Weekly gave it a D-, saying that it was turgid and half-baked. I don't know what turgid means, but I'm gonna Google it real quick. Oh yeah, it's turgid. This is trash. Fatal Rewind is an Amiga game turned Genesis port. The original name of the game was The Killing Game Show. The basic principle of it is that you're like death row inmates and you have to go through this gauntlet and everybody's watching the game show. It's stupid. It was made by Raising Hell Software, who made 3 whole games before rebranding to Bizarre Creations. For those of you who don't know that name, Bizarre Creations, they're responsible for Project Gotham Racing. The more you know, right? Well, the Amiga game was alright for what it was, but when you port a subpar Amiga game to the Genesis, then you get an even more subpar gaming experience. You know the saying, shit rolls downhill? Well, in this case, it truly does, and this turd's rolling at the speed of light. It's just not a good time. Also, no continues, and no password system, so if you die, fuck you, learn the whole game all over again. Imagine a platformer requiring X and Y coordinates to navigate it. That's how annoying this is. Oh, and the music? It can't keep up with the action, which means that you get this annoying stuttering sound as you play the game. You know, there's always one hot take that I have in all of these episodes. This is probably the one that's going to rustle your jimmies a little bit. I don't really care. Mortal Kombat 2 was the follow-up to the massively successful Mortal Kombat 1. In the arcades, Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 were great. On the home console, they were incredibly difficult. Like unreasonably difficult. And need I say, fun as hell. They're fun. You were saving so much money by playing these games at home versus what you would spend in an arcade to challenge the computer or play these with your friends. Here's the issue. The Genesis was shipped with a 3-button controller. You would have to go out of your way to buy a 6-button controller, of which there were only 2 varieties. The MK1653, which was the generalized controller, and the MK1470, which was like a 6-button arcade pad. No, they weren't cheap. So parents wouldn't necessarily go out and buy it for you. And even then, the controller wasn't released until several months after Mortal Kombat 2 came out. So imagine doing everything you would do in the arcade on a 3-button controller. Oh, and I forgot to mention the bosses, they're on PCP, and the difficulty setting doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Mortal Kombat 2 on the Genesis is not a good time unless you truly like getting your shit beaten all the way up to your eyes. Yeah. Getting your shit handed to you. Out of your mouth. Right in your hands. Mortal Kombat still kicks ass to this day, and a new game was recently released. Mortal Kombat 1, you should check it out. Earthworm Gym is a cult classic. Big time cult classic. It was pitched by Playmate Toys, who had licensed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was inspired by Sonic to create an IP that would stand the test of time. This led to Earthworm Gym. Earthworm Gym was an idea created by Doug Tinnaple and given to Shiny Entertainment, who released Earthworm Gym in 1994 for the Genesis. Earthworm Gym is a platformer, but it's a platformer in the era where platformers still featured massive annoying maps with enemies that would come out of nowhere and just ruin your day, with little way of you responding to that action. And should you make it far enough to enjoy the water levels, then you'll realize just how messed up this game is. I know, because all of you had such wonderful childhoods that you're going to see these games, you're going to be like, fuck you, guy, you're wrong, eh? And you know what? I might be, but I really don't like Earthworm Gym 1, and apparently so did others, because this franchise has been dead in the water since 2010, and even then, the 2010 re-release was just Earthworm Gym High Definition. Imagitech was a company from the UK. They were known for making tons of games that interweaved a really promising relationship with Atari, Gremlin, and EA, but I can't name a single game of theirs that I enjoyed. The one that I did play was The Humans, which is just an annoying, low-budget ripoff of Lemmings from Psygnosis. If you enjoy controlling a few idiots who have no clue what to do, or you like Lemmings-style games, then this one is for you. Also, the manual says don't eat your cartridge. You shouldn't ever be stupid enough to eat your cartridge, but apparently Imagitech thinks that humans are. And honestly, they're stupid enough in this game to do that if they're told. There were a few more Humans games, but I don't expect to check them out anytime soon. Oh hell yeah, X-Men? Fuck no X-Men! This game had potential to be really awesome, but when I played it, it was janky, broken, bosses randomly despawned, and I had a bad time. Apparently, the developers did too, because they only released 17 games before tanking and being bought by Wonderlust Interactive, which I have never heard of. It really irritates me as well, because Western Technologies, the company that developed X-Men, has a really important place in history as the creator of the Milton Bradley Vectrex, which was one of the most ambitious consoles of its time. X-Men was just a bad entry in the franchise that would get tons of love through the years. I want to like X-Men. Maybe I'll give it a chance. I will be drunk during it. What happens when you take a children's movie and you make a game about it that has little or nothing to do with the plot of the film that's based on? Well, you get 2 Genesis games, Bell's Quest and Roar of the Beast. Now, I've never played Bell's Quest, but something tells me Sunsoft messed that one up too. Roar of the Beast is unequivocally difficult for the audience that it was created for, and the amount of mandatory damage you receive, it's concerning. If you're lucky, you'll find a health item to replenish your health, but most of the time, there's going to be another enemy a pixel away to take it from you again. This game is trash. Street Fighter 2, epic game. Mortal Kombat, just as good. So why not let Sega make their own fighting franchise that fits the vein of these, tournament fighters? Well, they did, with Eternal Champions. Now on paper, this game is awesome. Custom, drawn sprites by a comic artist that we didn't credit because we're assholes. Check. Elaborate combos to initialize fatalities known as overkills that most people couldn't do because you have a 3-button controller. Check. AI that is so dreadfully unfair that they wipe the floor with you. Check. Oh yeah. A penalty for losing the fight that makes you go back one stage if you lose the fight. Check. Yeah, if you lose 2 rounds, you have to go back to the previous fight, and the only way to truly game over is if you get sent all the way back to stage 1 and you lose on stage 1, and then the fight master's like, bro, you suck. In the history of every fighting game that I've ever played, I've never had to contend with something as disrespectful as that. Jesus Christ, was that game bad. And to make matters worse, it spawned 2 more games, Experts and Chicago Syndicate. I own both of them, never played them. As I continue to check out the library for the Sega Genesis, I'm sure that I'll see many more games that will drive me insane and end up on this list, but we can't have the good without the bad. It's a necessary evil. If you like what you saw, make sure that you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tell me down below what our next top 10 should be. For my family, your family, good energy, good vibes, Fortify out.